everybody!
Hello,
We had some technical difficulties. We are back. So if everyone looks like, oh, that's why, everybody. But welcome to Talking with Tom and Jim. I'm your host, Jeff Greenwald. Above me are Jim Goldrup, Tom Goldrup. They're up there above me. As always, welcome, guys. So great to have you here. They are film historians, actors, writers. They've traveled the world. They've written 4 books on the golden age of Hollywood. And so, guys, thank you for being here. And as always, and to your show. And it's so fun to talk with you guys.
And thanks for putting up with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next to me, I'm excited because next to me is Ray Goldrup, their brother, who also happens to be a very experienced and accomplished screenwriter. And so I'm so happy to have you here tonight with us, Ray. So welcome. How's it going?
It's going.
It was going fine until we had this insane technical problem. But welcome, and I'm really happy anyway to have you all with us. And so, Ray, I'm going to start off tonight. I had a quick question about, not just about writing in general. I wanted to quote an actor who I interviewed, David Suchet, who is a famous actor over in England. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with his work. He just got a knighthood. Actually, I talked to him right before his knighthood. And I talked to him about being a writer. And this is what he told me about writing. So I'm going to paraphrase Jim and say I'm sorry for reading. But I'm going to read this really quick because I wrote it down right after I talked with him because I was so impressed by this statement. He said, "Let me give you some advice. Keep writing. Write and write and write. Write when you have something to say, but also when you have nothing to say. Just keep writing, because without writers, us actors will have nothing to do." And I was so impressed with that, especially coming from an actor, that he was so respectful of writers, right? He's the work starts with writers, and if there weren't writers, there would be nothing for actors to do. And so I was so taken by that. I was so impressed with that. So Ray, I guess my question in general is, with your writing, what's the process? Do ideas come in one way or the other? Or do you sit in a corner and say, today I have to write, I've got 5 hours? Or do things come into your mind when you're out hiking and go, oh, that would be a great story? How does all that process work for you?
Well, when your career is writing, you've got a lot of time. But that a lot of time as well is taken up with family, which to me is the greatest joy in my life is my wife and kids, my brothers, my grandkids. They consume much of my time, and that's my greatest achievement in life. I think is being a father and a husband. Somebody once told me, because I spent a lot of time with my kids playing with them and stuff, and the guy said, you can't be a father if you're a friend to your kids. And I said to him, a father who's not a friend is just a word. And I believe that 1,001%. I love writing about earthy stories, and so that's where a lot of my thoughts are generated from, earthy stories about everyday people, like a Little House on the Prairie, dealing with great odds, and the ideas come from memory, from things I've experienced. They come from a need, and that's in regard to therapy. Writing is the greatest form of therapy that sure helped me in my life, because I have dealt with a lot of serious depressions, and I was a slow bloomer. When I was in my 20s, I was going through my teenage years, I think, and I had all these conflicting emotions, and I didn't know how to express them. I didn't want to worry my mom or dad, so I didn't really talk to them a lot about things that I didn't understand that were really kind of like a dark cloud over my head. Um, but I found that writing was a way to let those drain. You know, it's like a fat tub of water ready to explode. But if you have a little place, a valve you can turn on and let that drain out, life becomes a lot more easier to cope with. So I first got into writing in general. I think, well, because I loved it too, and I didn't realize at the time how much I loved it. But it did become a wonderful form of therapy. I did a Waltons once. That's set in the 30s, not a Western. I love Westerns probably the most. We grew up, me and my brothers grew up in dark little theaters, loving Westerns. And I often thought if I was a time traveler, I'd love to go back to just spend time living with everyday people then and there, and maybe get a lot of ideas there. But since I wasn't a time traveler, my mind had to come up with conjure up other ways of creating stories. And there's Waltons. I had a close friend who was like a brother to me. You know, a little heavy-set kid. Kids used to make fun of him at school, and that's why I befriended him originally, it's because I felt sorry for him. And then I came to love him as the person he was. And he died when he was 19, and he had his whole a big thing going for him in life. He was engaged, had all these opportunities, and I was just kind of a nobody, so to speak. And I didn't understand why he kind of went that eventually to end. But yeah, so I wrote this Waltons that dealt with one of the Waltons' children, the brother to John Walton, who's the principal regular, and he couldn't understand this particular episode. Guest starred Ron Howard, and I gave that character a rare blood disease, a terminal blood disease, and it's how he had to cope with it in preparation to die, living out his last whatever time the Lord allowed him, and um, in doing so, in writing the story, I was able to get out of me, away from me, this problem that had been kind of tormenting me ever since I was after my friend died. I was able to put it into the story, and so I got rid of it. Opened that little valve, and it drained out, and it was very helpful. So that's one of my primary reasons that I love writing. The other is just because my wife helped me.
That Walton script, that Walton episode, it got a recognition in Canada about to help young people cope with dying.
Right. This organization up in Canada sent me a letter and asked if I'd give my permission for them to use that particular Waltons in their hospital, which was a hospital for the terminally ill kids, to help them better cope with dying. So that made me feel really, really good. That in itself is probably one of the biggest rewards I get out of writing. Sometimes I've written a lot of children's stories too for an international children's magazine called The Friend. I've sold more than 300 to them, and I used to once in a while get a letter from a kid, or I'd hear from the editors that a particular story I wrote helped a little kid who was dealing with this struggle or that struggle, and so these things encourage me to write. If I can do good, I wrote a lot of films for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and in writing those, a lot of times I got a lot of help from the guy upstairs, and I felt like splitting credits with him, because they used to say, the story people up there would say, "Give it to Ray, he'll get it to us last week," you know, and that was such pressure on me that it was very hard to deal with. And so that's the guy upstairs, if he could help, I said, "This is for you." And I'd get on one project called The Other Wise Men, which was a half an hour animated special that that played at Christmas time. I asked it. What was I saying? I don't know what I was saying.
The other wise,
That you got a lot of help from the man upstairs when it came down.
you're talking about the other wise men.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I got a lot of help from that. Just
Yeah,
my
you're
pen, I couldn't
talking
keep
about
up
the
with,
other wise men.
right, the other wise men. And I just couldn't keep up with my pen. I was getting all these cool thoughts, dialogue and action and everything, scenes from somewhere other than my own head.
Mm. You guys were talking about, well, Tom, I think, mentioned. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, Tom mentioned when we were talking earlier about, he said that, so, and this is an actor we talked about a bit before, but John Anderson was in an episode of Little House on the Prairie that you wrote, and we didn't dive, when Tom was talking to me, we didn't go into it in detail, so I was just wondering, apparently he was very moved by that episode, he really liked that episode, and is there more to that?
Yeah, it was a sweet. I forget how he described it. It was
I can look it up.
well.
Yeah.
He really liked the character and really it was a good story. He liked it. And another thing that Ray mentioned on the other part was sometimes when you're writing the script, sometimes the character would take you on a different path than what you had originally planned.
Yes,
Like in Gunsmoke.
Before I ever put a character to paper, I get to know him really well, so that he would be that character rather than part me and two or three other people that weren't really, so he is believable. That's the bottom line, so that he would be believable. And I was doing that Gunsmoke with Morgan Woodward played as the character Abraham Wakefield. Halfway through the script, the character started telling me what he wanted me to do and where I was to take him. I had it all planned out in my mind what I was going to do with him. And I thought, Abraham, I'll decide what I do with you. You just stay on your horse and mind your own business, and I'll take care of the rest. But I decided to give him the reins, follow his character, and so I wrote two endings to the script. One was mine, and the other one I really belonged to Abraham Wakefield. And guess which ending they used? Mine, Abraham's.